Thanks for joining us on another episode of Paranormal United States. In this episode, we're talking about Hawaii.
Yes, so we're going to go to the wonderful state of Hawaii. And usually, when you think of Hawaii, you think of sun, sea, and beaches, something a little bit like this.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a darker side to the islands. And some people say it's actually one of the most haunted states, and there's more hauntings than other states.
Okay.
However, obviously, it's a small state, so it could just be like just condensed. So it seems like there's more, but it's just condensed into a small space. But there's been quite a lot that I've been able to find as I've been looking into this episode. But interestingly, I believe it to be the only state without a Bigfoot sighting.
Okay.
So every other state has had a Bigfoot sighting apart from Hawaii.
Do you think that's because of where it is? Because it's quite a way away from the mainland, isn't it?
Yeah, it's in the middle of the Pacific, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
like I say, it's quite small again. So it may, like you say, hard to find or it's hard to stay out of sight, I guess, around the volcanoes. Although there is a famous dogman,
Okay.
which is based on an old legend of Kuape. And obviously, with Hawaii, there's lots of words that are quite hard to pronounce. So I will apologise in advance if I mess any of these words up.
Started off well.
Yeah, so hopefully Kuape is the right pronunciation. This is an old legend of a cannibal who ate many of the enemies before he himself was killed. And then he was destined to forever roam the islands. But there's modern day reports of people like driving down these old roads and seeing what looks like a dog eating roadkill. Now to get closer to it, the dog stands up and runs off. So that's just some of the sort of dogman type stuff that's been reported.
Odd.
But one of the things we're going to talk about is Morgan's Corner,
Okay.
and which is on the old Pali Road, which is, and the corner itself is pretty famous among paranormal investigators. And it's just a short distance from the Pali Lookout, which is a large cliff that overlooks Oahu. Again, I'm hoping that's not right. Yeah, but this is the cliff behind me. Like I say, overlooks Oahu and then into the sea, the ocean, further beyond. And that cliff itself's got its own bit of creepy history. So in 1795, over 400 warriors were forced off the edge of the cliff, and it's said that their remains are still there.
Well.
And at night, you can hear the howling and cries of the fallen warriors as they're laying in their resting place. Morgan's Corner, however, is the scene for one of the island's most notorious murders. In 1948, two escaped convicts, James Majors and John Palikiko, they were actually, like I say, escaped convicts. They were on a work thing out of prison doing some work, and they just escaped. And they murdered 68-year-old widow Teresa Wilder in the house near Morgan's Corner. It was a home invasion, and Wilder was bound, beaten, and gagged in her bed. And she died of suffocation due to a broken jaw that she got during the struggle. And the gag that they put around the neck and mouth. The men were captured a few days later and were sentenced to death by hanging. However, in 1951, the then Governor Owen Long issued a stay of execution 2 minutes before the hanging was to take place, when the men's attorney presented evidence that they were forced confessions. Yeah. So I don't think there's any doubt that they actually killed her, but saying it like they didn't mean to kill her. Like obviously the invader trying to rob her, they beat her up, but apparently it wasn't actual premeditated murder. They were forced to confess that they tried to murder her, so they shouldn't get the hanging punishment. It should just be life in prison or whatever. So he basically commuted the sentence. In 1954, 3 years later, the new governor, Samuel King, commuted it to 90 years in prison, which is just the same as life sentence, really. Yeah. However, in 1962, so 8 years later, another governor commuted the sentence to probation.
Oh, wow.
So they're both released on probation. Palikiko, he violated his parole and was sent to prison for 3 years, where he died inside prison on 1974. Majors, however, completed his parole in 1968 and he moved to Maui, where he spent the rest of his life, and he died in 2009.
Okay.
So he lived quite a
Yeah.
long life, nearly 100 years old, really. 90 something, I think. Because they were only young. They were like 19 and 20, I think, in 1948 when they killed her. And he lived to 2009. So he ended up having quite a long life. And like I say, it's forced confession, so who knows what the truth could have been. Like 1940s, it's a bit of a different time.
Yeah, definitely.
But Morgan's Corner is now empty. No house is there. And the area is deep with trees and forests. It's little more than a rainforest, really. It's dark. Even in the daytime, it's pretty dark. But at night, it's just pitch black, as you expect. And it's creepy just being there, just in the middle of the forest. But it's believed that Wilder, she never left, and she can still be heard screaming for her life and shouting for help. So that's just one of the stories around this corner and this part of the Pali Road, as it's called. There's another ghost on the same road called the Half-Faced Phantom. So you thought the last story was a bit dark. This is pretty bad. So the Half-Faced Phantom is said to be the wandering soul of a teenage girl who was raped, killed, and left to decompose in the bushes alongside the road. She was strangled using her own skipping rope that she used to take with her everywhere. She loved this skipping rope. So her apparition's been seen there quite a lot. You see a young girl with long black hair just skipping down the road. It's going to be quite unnerving enough if you've just seen a girl, just an apparition just skipping. But when you get close enough, you can see that her face has got no cheeks, no nose, or mouth.
Oh, God.
The only thing that's left are her eyes, which are said to be bulging out the eye sockets, which is meant to be because she was strangled. That's how she died. It's basically how she was in the last moments. Oh, obviously, eyes bulging in terror as she's being strangled. And like I say, her body was found decomposed. I believe the animals have been basically eating her body, and that's why half her face is missing. That's why you only see half her face.
That is pretty dark.
So yeah, it's not a nice story, and she's now doomed to wander on this road. So obviously, I was like, I hope this isn't true. It's pretty. Obviously, these things happen.
Yeah.
But it's obviously a bit of a horrid story. So just some digging, see if I can actually find if anyone was murdered, sort of in that way, and body was found, etc. And I was able to find out that in 1982, a 19-year-old girl, Lisa Au, was found. Her naked, decomposing body was found in a ravine off Tantalus Drive, which is not far away from Old Pali Road.
Okay.
And nobody's ever been found guilty of a murder.
Oh,
wow. So at the time, there's a police officer or police sheriff that was like the main suspect, and he's believed to have been the murderer. So people start getting scared because they're like, there's this sheriff pulling people over and then like raping and murdering them. But like the investigation's been reopened. They've exhumed the body a couple of times for more evidence because apparently they completely fucked it up when they did the initial like post-mortem. They just didn't do anything properly. She was still inside. She was still dirty when they exhumed her. She's still inside the police bag. Yeah. Like when they dug the body up, so like literally nothing had been done properly. It's probably resulted in no convictions. I think the latest time it was reopened was only a couple of years ago. Like the file's still open, and some people are still looking into it, trying to find out who killed her.
That is, yeah.
So that could explain why she's still there. If this obviously unanswered question of who killed her, her parents now both died, and they obviously died forever, not knowing what happened to her daughter.
Sad. To
their daughter. So that could be a reason why she's still seen on this road. Could be the same girl. There's some similarities. It's not far from where the apparition is reported to be seen. Naked body found decomposing, as in the story. So it can't
be too many of them, surely.
No, I think especially on like a small island, like that's not like a big city where there's murders all the time and stuff. That's sort of the only story I could find that could relate to the tale of that girl being seen.
Sounds like a horrid road to go down.
Yes, it is. And that's just some of the stuff that I've come across. Obviously, that's pretty dark. So I want to go a little bit a lighter note as we I don't want to end it with that story. And there's a legend of passing the pork. And I want to talk about this because it actually reminded me of my Chihuahua incident in Mendlesham Forest. So I thought I've got to
Yes.
talk about this because it's kind of funny. It's a bit lighthearted. But apparently, you should never carry pork over the old Pali Road or the nearby Pali Highway.
Okay.
Because if you do, your car will either break down or you get into an accident if you've got
Oh,
pork in your vehicle. And there's reports stating that when you're broken down, a small white dog will appear, a puppy will appear, it will come to your car. This is what reminded me of the Chihuahua. This small white puppy
yeah.
will come to your car, and it will start getting bigger, bigger and bigger. This dog, it can get bigger than your car, bigger than you. Just keeps growing until you either do one of two things. One is throw the offending pork away, just get rid of it. Or two, you have to urinate over the driver's side tire. Apparently,
Okay.
that gets rid of this dog by weeing on
Oh,
your own car.
oh wow.
Or the occupants have to urinate on the car as well. So that's one of the two things that you have to do.
Oh, both. I'm not really too sure. I'd be up for it. I like a bit of pork, but
I know, but apparently it's because apparently food, especially pork, attracts hungry and agitated spirits.
okay.
And taking pork over the Pali Road
Mhm.
is linked to the turbulent relationship between Pele, the goddess of fire, and Kamapuawa, who's a human demigod, which is half man, half pig, from
Okay.
Hawaiian folklore.
Yeah.
And the story goes that the two agreed not to visit each other, but when you take pork over the Pali, it means that you're taking a form of Kamapuawa from his domain, which is one side of the island, to the other, into Pele's domain.
Okay.
So it's like they're not allowed to cross over. They have their sides, and you're not supposed to mix the two.
Okay.
So you ignore the warnings by taking pork over, and then Pele stops your car, and you run the risk of this dog appearing and
Wow.
growing.
So is the dog supposed to attack you or
I'm not there to find out. It appears and just keeps
just
getting bigger, which I think would be quite scary.
yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely.
it just
Well,
made me think of the Chihuahua just appearing at the side of
yeah,
the road, and it's
definitely.
like this dog just appearing because you've got pork in your car and you're broken down.
That's a better note to end on.
Yeah, so I did all the research into like murder and the other murder and the decomposing body. Is like, I don't want to talk too much about this one.
Let's get on to dogs.
Yeah,
That's yeah. Wow.
yeah,
Okay, interesting. I imagine that's just a small part of
yeah.
Hawaii's.
Just there's lots. Cool. So that's it for this week's Paranormal United States. Join us next week when we'll be heading to Idaho.